She was just doing her usual work when the wealthy wife suddenly sprang up, came over, and tore her uniform right in front of everyone. The sound of ripping fabric cracked like thunder in the opulent room, drawing every gaze at once. But no one in that luxurious house anticipated what the powerful man would do next. And believe me, this story will leave you speechless. Before we go any further, a quick note: if you're watching, please hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from, because I really want to see our audience coming from all around the world. Thank you. And now let's begin. That morning, sunlight streamed through the lofty windows of the Stonefield mansion, a place encircled by an old rose garden and an iron gate that was always closed. In that space, the footsteps of Alina, a 25-year-old maid, were so light they nearly melted into the polished marble floor. She wore a simple navy uniform, yet her straight back and bright eyes gave her a calm poise that even honored guests had to look up to. Alina had worked for the Kingsley family for nearly a year. This mansion contained a level of extravagance that seemed unbelievable: crystal chandeliers hanging from ceilings that nearly touched the sky, oil paintings in heavy gilded frames, and a staircase curving like a classical melody. Every object, every decorative detail was a declaration of the old power of this lineage. But behind that glittering facade, seeds of tension were waiting to erupt. Alina came from poverty, raised in a cramped apartment with her grandmother. She had taken many jobs to make ends meet, from washing dishes in eateries to cleaning offices, yet she persisted in attending night classes. When the housekeeper position at Stonefield opened, she saw it as a door to building her future. Alina always upheld professionalism, dedication, and above all, self-respect. Things that might seem small, but soon made her a thorn in the side of another woman. When the intricately carved limba wood door closed, the world inside Stonefield emerged like a play in which each person already had a role. It was not just a house. It was a stage for power, jealousy, and unfathomable secrets. The Kingsley family had three central figures. First was Alexander Kingsley, a man in his 40s who had built his fortune from a series of venture investments. He possessed a composed bearing with deep eyes that seemed to weigh every person before him. In Alexander, there was an authority that needed no display, a quiet confidence that made anyone feel smaller in his presence. Yet, beneath that steel exterior lay an untouched emptiness, a loneliness money could not fill. Beside him was Claudia Kingsley, his wife, nearly 10 years younger. Claudia came from a prestigious family where charity galas and fashion magazines defined the standards of life. With golden hair, a razor-edged smile, and a runway stride, she was the perfect image of a high society lady. Claudia understood the rules of this world: appear in the right places, wear the right brands, cultivate the right connections. But above all, she understood that preserving the position of lady of the house was her greatest mission. And anyone, even a young maid who made her husband's gaze waver, became a threat. Lastly, there was Sophia, an 11-year-old girl, Alexander's daughter from his late first wife. Sophia had bright, curious eyes and a heart that had not yet learned to build walls. To her, Alina was more than staff. She was a listener, a pair of skillful hands fixing a broken doll, a soft lullaby voice on rainy nights. In Sophia's innocence, Alina found a rare warmth in this chilly household. Amid crystal velvet and shimmering candlelight, these people orbited one another like planets that both attract and repel. And at the center of that vortex of power, Alina kept her footing, not realizing that her very kindness was about to fan a conflict that could not be put out. From the very first days, Alina sensed a difference in the way Alexander treated her. He did not merely nod blandly as he did with other employees. He asked about the book she was reading, listened to her opinions about the new painting in the parlor, and even once smiled when she shared her views on an art exhibition. For Alina, those moments were both a quiet joy and an unspoken fear. She understood clearly that any friendliness from the master could be interpreted as a dangerous overstep. Claudia missed nothing. Every time Alexander's eyes lingered on Alina, her smile grew taut. Criticisms began to appear at first only in little details. This vase arrangement looks lifeless. This spoon isn't shiny enough. Your uniform seems a bit wrinkled. Though Alina always completed her work with rare meticulousness, she had to hear the same sweet yet venom-laced jabs again and again. She endured bowing her head, smiling and apologizing, even when she had done nothing wrong. But inside, tiny scratches slowly formed. The humiliation wasn't in the job itself, but in being scrutinized simply because her very existence made someone feel insecure. It wasn't only Alina who noticed. The elderly housekeeper who had worked in the Kingsley home for over 2 decades often shook her head in sympathy. When the gardener happened to meet Alina on the path, he gave a small, encouraging smile. And Sophia, an inherently perceptive child, gradually understood that something was amiss. She would often whisper, "Please don't be sad. I know you're always kind to me." Those innocent words warmed Alina's heart and pained it in equal measure. Day after day, the tension swelled like a silent current pressing against a dam. Alina knew it would burst at some point, but she couldn't guess when. And then the opportunity for Claudia to publicly humiliate the person she viewed as a threat arrived at a dinner party the entire city had its eyes on. On Thursday night, the Stonefield Grand Hall shone like a palace. Candles shimmered along the long banquet table, crystal glasses caught the chandelier's light, and the orchestra played a familiar waltz. The guests were all power players, Wall Street investors, a few politicians and luminaries from the arts. In a metallic silk gown, Claudia smiled as if the night were a stage made solely for her. Alina had spent the whole day preparing for this event. She meticulously polished each silver fork, folded napkins into roses, and arranged vases of pure white lilies with a gentle scent. When the guests arrived, she moved quietly among the rows of chairs, pouring wine, changing plates, and tending to every detail with her customary patience. To the eye, everything was flawless. But that sophisticated atmosphere was soon torn apart. Just as Elena bent to clear dessert plates, Claudia abruptly stood. The rasp of a chair leg on marble made everyone freeze. "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen," she said in a bright voice that cut like a blade. "It seems someone in this house has forgotten her place." The entire room fell silent. Alina looked up, eyes wide, not yet understanding. Claudia drew near, her gown glittering while her face was ice cold. "Come here." The word "please" followed, but it was so sweet it sounded false. Alina set down the tray and walked slowly toward her employer. Guests' eyes followed as if witnessing an unexpected scene in a play. Claudia stopped right in front of Alina, her smile paper-thin. "Who do you think you are, walking around this house as if you belong to it? Don't forget you're just the help." Then suddenly the diamond-adorned hand seized the collar of Alina's uniform and yanked hard. The sound of tearing fabric echoed through the hall. Alina staggered, clutching the ripped cloth, her face flushing with shame. A few ladies turned away. Several men frowned awkwardly. No one had imagined such cruelty could be displayed so openly. At the end of the table, Alexander gripped the armrest, his face darkening. In that very moment, the lavish banquet transformed into a battlefield where truth and dignity would be laid bare. While the harsh rip of the uniform still reverberated, the entire room sank into heavy silence. Alina stood trembling, arms wrapped around the torn fabric, eyes glistening yet resolute in holding back tears. The banquet rose went utterly still. Only the faint crackle of candle flames and a few uncomfortable whispers remained. Then another sound rose, the scrape of a heavy wooden chair on stone. Alexander Kingsley slowly stood. He was tall, and the shadow of the chandelier above made his figure even more commanding. All eyes turned to the master of the house, waiting. Claudia. A single word, low and decisive, a verdict. The triumph on her face stalled at once. Alexander walked around the table, each step unhurried yet weighty, until he stopped in front of Alina. He slipped off his fitted black jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. The gesture drew a collective intake of breath from many guests. "No one in this house deserves to be treated like that," he said, voice steady and resonant, each word seeming to etch into the stone walls. "Alina is not just an employee. She is a human being, and she deserves respect." Alina bowed her head, tears spilling as the warm fabric shielded the shame just inflicted. But Alexander did not stop. He turned to the guest's eyes like ice. "To make this clear, Alina has worked here for less than a year, yet in that time she has demonstrated more dedication and dignity than many who claim high status. She graduated at the top of her class at a community college while working and caring for an ailing grandmother. She speaks 3 languages and has been accepted into a prestigious university program this fall. Those are the qualities of someone truly valuable." A murmur rippled through the hall. One lady lowered her head, cheeks flushed. A businessman gave a small nod. Claudia's lips quivered. She could not believe her husband would overturn the table in front of everyone. Then a small voice carried far. Sophia, standing by the doorway with tears rolling down her face. "Daddy, Miss Alina is always kind to me. She never scolds me. She makes the best hot chocolate." Truth from a child left the hall choked with emotion. Tonight, justice was no longer an abstract idea. It was present in eyes and words. In the moment, a powerful man chose dignity over arrogance. After Alexander's declaration, the once splendid room felt heavy, as if veiled in thick mist. The candles still burned, the glasses still glimmered, but the warm luxury had vanished, replaced by embarrassment and unease. Guests accustomed to displays of power now faced a stark truth in this house. The only person humiliated was not the maid, but the mistress. Claudia stood stunned, her face pale beneath heavy makeup. She tried to force a smile, but the trembling corners of her mouth betrayed the panic within. Eyes that once admired now turned inquisitive and doubtful. Some women leaned together to whisper. A few men dabbed their foreheads, eager to end the evening. Several couples quietly rose, citing early obligations. Alexander needed no shouting. His cold silence and unwavering gaze were enough to render Claudia alone on the very stage she had built. He turned to the guests. "I apologize for what happened tonight, but there are limits. When they are crossed, we must look at ourselves." His words were gentle, yet felt like a direct blow to everyone's pride. When the last door closed behind the final guest, only chill remained. Claudia stood alone, her lavish gown now a burden. Sophia clung tightly to Alina, eyes red. Alexander folded his arms and looked straight at his wife. "Claudia, do you understand what you traded tonight? Reputation, affection, and our daughter's trust?" Claudia opened her mouth but couldn't utter a word. In that moment, she realized that power was not in a splendid gown, nor in a social network. True power was respect, something she had completely lost. Alina stayed silent, still wrapped in Alexander's jacket, a living testament to the moral verdict delivered right here in this very house. 6 months had passed since that fateful banquet night. The Stonefield mansion still stood tall amid the old rose garden, but the air inside had changed. The walls that once echoed with reproach now brimmed with children's laughter and a peace thought to be lost. Alina had graduated from her business course with honors thanks largely to a scholarship Alexander provided. No longer wearing the Navy uniform, she now stepped out of the lecture hall in a simple white blouse greeted by friends' cheers. In the audience, Sophia waved nonstop while Alexander sat beside her, eyes filled with pride. The moment Alina received her diploma, the hall erupted not just for an achievement, but for the affirmation of steadfastness and dignity that cannot be trampled. Sophia kept her habit of running to Alina's room every afternoon for homework help or simply to listen to stories. To the girl, Alina had become a familiar anchor, not replacing anyone but providing the warm presence childhood needs. Alexander was equally forthright. "Alina, the road ahead is yours. The doors of our company are always open, but the choice is yours." That sentence was not only a career promise, it was an acknowledgement of equality. After the incident, Claudia quietly sought therapy. She no longer appeared at lavish parties, instead spending time journaling and attending community sharing sessions. She was still far from regaining her husband's and daughter's trust, but at least acknowledging her mistake was a beginning. Alina chose to establish a small scholarship fund in her grandmother's name for poor but diligent students. When she announced the fund in the university hall, the audience rose to applaud. Alexander and Sophia stood there too, eyes shining. And so, from a torn uniform on a night of humiliation, Alina built a legacy not through revenge, but through compassion. The message still echoes true. Wealth does not lie in crystal and velvet, but in the courage to stand on the right side even when the price seems far too high.